Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Group Captain John Ibbotson. We warmly welcome the family of Flying Officer Sidney Milton Forrester, whose story will be told shortly. We also acknowledge Mr. Ollie Newstrup, Deputy Head of Mission from the Embassy of Denmark, who will join the Forrester family in laying a wreath for the Flying Officer Forrester, who was killed when his plane crashed near the village of Shandel, Denmark, during the Second World War. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching this ceremony broadcast around Australia. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. You may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families, friends, and all Australians could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and other operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we pay tribute to Flying Officer Sidney Milton Forrester, who was killed on active service with the Royal Australian Air Force in 1943. The son of Milton and Eleanor Forrester, Sidney Milton Forrester was born in the outback township of Orroroo, South Australia, on the 25th of March 1921. Known to his friends and family as Sid, he grew up on the family sheep station at Minborough. Forrester attended the local school at Orroroo until Year 9 and was dux of the school. In 1935, Forrester moved to Adelaide to finish his education at Unley High School. He was a brilliant sportsman, excelled at cricket, football, tennis and swimming, as well as classical music. Forrester graduated with honours in 1939 and enrolled to study medicine at the University of Adelaide. There he supported himself by working as a shop assistant and insurance agent. In April 1941, aged 20, Forrester enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force. He was sent to Parafield Elementary Flying Training School in South Australia and then to Point Cook in Victoria, and after months of training, qualified as a pilot and was promoted to pilot officer. In August of 1942, Forrester embarked for Britain. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, Forrester was one of almost 27,000 RAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who joined squadrons in Britain and throughout the course of the war. Once in Britain, Forrester undertook further specialist training before being posted to No. 460 Squadron. This squadron was based in Lincolnshire, from where they undertook the strategic bombing of Germany. On the 3rd of September 1943, Forrester's Lancaster took off for a raid on Berlin with 315 other aircraft. On its return, the Lancaster swung over Denmark and was engaged by a German night fighter. In the early hours of the 4th of September 1943, the Lancaster, manned by Sid Forrester and his crew, crashed near the Danish village of Stadel. All 8 on board, the 7 crew and a senior officer, were killed instantly. The local villagers heard the flying battle and investigated the site of the crash. Today, they continue to maintain a memorial to these airmen who were killed on the outskirts of their village. Flying Officer Sidney Forrester was 22 years old. His body was not recovered and today is commemorated on the Air Force Memorial at Runnymede, together with the 3 other Australians and 4 Englishmen on board. Forrester's name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, along with some 40,000 Australian men and women who died in the Second World War, and his Australian crewmates, Squadron Leader Carl Richard Kelleher, Warrant Officer Ewan Garth Carthew, and Warrant Officer Cyril Augustine Walsh. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer Sidney Milton Forrester and all of those Australians, as well as our allies and brothers in arms, who gave their lives for our nation.
Please be upstanding for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.